Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. Today I'm going to tell you what happens when you entertain socialists. So, unless you're living under a rock right now, you probably know that Venezuela's in the dark. Like literally, figuratively, spiritually, in the dark. And the reason for this is because the good people, the good conservative people in Venezuela allowed socialists in the mid-90s to continue to talk and to have their platforms, and ultimately they won the democratic elections. And so with Hugo Chavez who came in, Hugo kind of like opened the way in our recent memory for socialism to really take over. Venezuela is a very rich country from a natural resource standpoint. You know, they're not inherently impoverished. They don't inherently lack technology or the know-how to use it. But what happened was Hugo got in there and he said, we're going to level the playing field, bring the utopian socialist whatever into our modern state of Venezuela. And so after him, of course, came Maduro, who is their current dictator / fearless leader now. But here's the thing, guys. These people in Venezuela now who are in the dark, who have no electricity, no water, their food is about to run out, like the refrigeratable, perishable food, that stuff's going to go within 24 hours, okay? So what's happening is, based on the reports that I'm getting, and I'm sure some of you actually probably have family and friends in Venezuela, what I'm getting at this point is that people are on the verge of running out of water right now. There are already countless people dead that have died in hospitals or that have died not being able to get anywhere. Their public services are, of course, shut down. What shell of them was operational to begin with. This is the same country that imprisoned bakers and blamed bakers for the bread shortage just a little while back. But folks, I want to take you down memory lane for a moment here, and I want you to see if you can spot any connections with the way in which socialism manifested and the horrors that came with it in Venezuela and are currently being perpetrated by the socialists in Venezuela. I want you to see which similarities you can draw to them in Venezuela with our current democratic socialist element here in the United States. I have a couple of factoids here that kind of stuck out to me as a nurse when I was reviewing the statistics on, for instance, infant mortality, maternal mortality, overall hospital mortality rates. Check this out. So all this stuff started with Chavez, of course, in the 90s. But in 2014, 9% of doctors surveyed said that their hospitals had only 7% of the necessary supplies. I guess this was an aggregate, like an average, but let me say that again. 9 out of 10 of these doctors said that their hospitals were functioning on less than 10% supply base. That is unfathomable to me as a nurse. That means you're running 90% low on linens, 90% low on IV fluids, 90% low on IV pumps and poles and all that stuff. Forget it. So it's a little surprise then, in 2015, 1/3 of patients who were admitted to their hospitals died. Let us remember that universal health care was one of the great promises of socialism when, kind of was getting its foothold there in Venezuela. Universal health care, right? Everybody will be treated fairly and equitably. Yeah, equitably sucky. In 2015, half of all operating rooms were non-functional. Half of all operating rooms were non-functional. This would include, by the way, your cesarean sections. This would include things like, total hip, total knee replacements. Forget that. You're not getting that in Venezuela. Are you kidding me? That's a joke. Simple things like, standard surgeries, general surgeries, half of them are not happening because 50% of your ORs are shut down. In 2016, this is what kind of hit home to me here. Although the Democrats nowadays wouldn't care about infant mortality per se because they're all for it and subsidizing it. But infant mortality increased in 2016 by 30%. A 30% increase in the amount of babies that died after they were born. What really got me, though, was in 2016, aside from the babies, the maternal mortality rate increased 65%. This year, infant mortality increased another 50%. All of this, of course, on the heels of all these great promises about the world's going to be a better place, right? Better place for us all, a fairer future, right? Party of the working man. So you see these levels here of involvement? You've got these promises, these empty promises that come when people are given a platform, when these socialists are given a platform to speak, and then the populace, numbed in their conscience or out of their mind with greed when it comes right down to it. They want other people's stuff. Socialism appeals to people who either will not achieve on their own, can't achieve because they're too freaking lazy, or people who are inherently jealous and covetous of their neighbor's stuff. They want the government, with the government's guns and the government's methods for compelling people using force. They want the government to serve as a middleman for taking their neighbor's stuff and putting it into their pockets. That's who socialism appeals to. So when we are hearing these arguments being made as intelligent, thinking, rational individuals who typically tend to be either conservative or at least constitutionally libertarian minded, we got to remember that socialism appeals to the lowest common denominator of humanity and the most base, wicked, and vile people that the world knows. So this is what happens when socialism gets in, folks. It starves people of their basic human needs, all couching it in the greater good. I hope it was helpful for y'all today. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to me, Patriot Nurse, and you can also support me on Patreon. If you haven't even donated $1 yet, maybe consider doing that, guys, and I really appreciate those of you that do. Your donations keep the videos coming, so make your way on over there if you haven't. I really appreciate y'all. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, guys. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.